Maharaj has mostly been engaged in traveling and preaching Krishna consciousness throughout the world. He permanently stays in Durban, where his gently and saintly presence provides stability. Just before we do start, and the Maharaj joins us, we do have some house rules. It'd be very nice if everyone could adhere to them. So if everyone can please keep their cameras on, because it's very nice if the Maharaj can see us all. It makes it more personal. Um, if everyone could please keep themselves on mute at all times to avoid any disturbances to the class. Um, we will have a Q&A at the end, but if you can please type your questions on the chat, Maharaj will go through them and answer them accordingly. Remember to put down your name and which country you are joining from, and please make the question short and relevant and to the topic. Please be respectful to one another. It's a safe space for everyone to participate, and please take full advantage of your session and marriage association, and try to avoid all distractions. I think Maharaj has joined us now. If everyone could please welcome His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami with three loud Haribols. Haribo! 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 His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj Ki. Oh, Maharaj, I believe you're on mute.
So, yeah. Okay, I'm here. Can you see me?
We can, Maharaj.
Oh, you can. Okay. All right. Hare Krishna, everyone. And thank you very much for participating in our little program today and next week, Saturday. Let me just start with some prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarane Vanchkalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, so devotees, here we are. And let me see if I can see myself. Well, I can see myself here. And I see you, Krishna Kesh Prabhu. Very nice to see you. But should they see me or should they see you? What would you say?
They should see you, Maharaj. They should be able to see yourself. I can pin your video, so everyone should be able to see you. Let me just. Oh,
Okay.
actually, the video is spotlighted. Yes,
Oh,
everyone should be
okay.
able to see you now,
There
Maharaj.
we are. There we are. There I am. For what it's worth, of course. Yes, okay. So, Hare Krishna devotees, and my humble obeisances to all of you, my respects, and so nice to be here with you. Let me just see if I can turn myself around the right way. This is a new machine here, and I don't know if I can. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So here we are. And our subject is basically devotee relationships, and with an emphasis, with a focus on friendly relationships. And I'm looking around here at you all, and I see there's a number of you who I know. There's Lokanath and Prema. There's Vanamalini. There's Kadruta. Wow. Hare Krishna Kadruta. how nice to see you. I don't know if I've ever seen you before. And there's Radharaman Prabhu Haribo. And there's Rajendra Nandan Prabhu ISKCON Sunderland. And who else? Radha Prema, I assume, from Russia. And Varsha, look, there's Varsha too. Hare Krishna to all of you. So we chanted some prayers. That's a good way to get off to a start. And the main focus of our discussion for today and for next week, Saturday, is relationships between equals. But of course, you know, we should also just get a general overview of relationships in general, Vaishnav relationships in general. And there's a few nice verses if you want to, make a note of some verses which are particularly focusing on devotee relationships in the broad sense, in the general sense. But one of them, which is one of my favorites, or maybe my favorite, it's chapter, fourth canto, chapter 8, verse 34. And this is Narada Muni speaking, just in the broad general sense. Gunadikan mudam lipsed, anukrosham gunadamat, maitrim samanad anvich chen, natapar abhibhuyate, which means every man should act like this. And I would say every woman should act like this too. I think Prabhupada a lot of the time is using sort of male gender terms, but, I think it's just sort of a generic situation that, it's a common way of expressing things. So anyway, here we are, fourth canto, chapter 8, verse 34, Narada Muni speaking. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, less qualified means junior, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. And then actually Narada Muni, the next sentence, part of the same verse, I mean, this is just what an amazing statement, actually. So, we got these three levels of relationships. First of all, he mentions people who are more qualified, more advanced, senior, you could say. Then you should be very pleased. Then someone who's less qualified, be compassionate. And then someone equal to oneself, you should make friendship with that devotee. And then he says, in this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. What do you think of that? Phew, isn't that a pretty amazing statement? That is, at least I find it very amazing, that if you learn how to recognize, first of all, people in terms of senior, junior, equal, and then you learn how to interact according to those relationships, then he says, if you learn how to do this, you'll never be affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. And, maybe we never thought in these types of terms, that it's such, learning how to deal in these ways is of like such absolute importance. But at least here, that's what Narada Muni says, that if you learn how to do this, you'll never be affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Miseries coming from the body and mind, miseries coming from other living entities, and miseries coming from, sometimes it's said, the demigods, or otherwise, sometimes it's said from just the material nature in general. It's hot, it's cold, etc. So these are the threefold miseries, Adhyatmic, Adhibautic, Adhidaivic. And these are basically the miseries. There's not a fourth type of misery. I don't think, I've not heard of it. Anyway, you know, if we analyze that statement and if we analyze, you know, the implications of what happens in our lives, then we will see that actually, to a large, very large extent, or according to Narada Muni, it's like this is just, you only really get miseries from relationships. And yeah, and well, I think we all know by now that life in this material world is difficult. And if we can learn how to avoid the miseries, boy, that will just be a great blessing and will help us so much. Yeah. So that's the point in principle, that learning how to understand people, first of all, you have to understand. And in this context, you have to understand in terms of who's senior, who's equal, who's junior. First of all, to understand, then learn how to interact. Then the impact that will have on your life is just extremely far-reaching. Yeah, and I mean, there's a number of verses which make the same. I mean, if not generally this point about becoming free from the threefold miseries, but just there are a number of verses in the Bhagavatam which talk about dealing with people who are senior or equal or junior. This is just one which I've quoted here. I've got a list of a few others, couple of others or so. One other, which I will just mention, I'll just read here. This is a description of Prahlad Maharaj found, and please note down the verse number or numbers. It's 2 verses, because unfortunately, you know, have you ever met anyone who's busy? Anyway, I'm busy. So I just haven't had time to get notes together and everything. But if you can note down, make a note of this noteworthy or these noteworthy verses, I think it'll help you. 7th canto, chapter 4, verse 31 and verse 32. And it's describing the character, personality of Prahlad Maharaj. So Prabhupada presents it as follows. The qualities of Maharaj Prahlad, the son of Hiranyakashipu, are described herewith. He was completely cultured as a qualified Brahmin, having very good character and being determined to understand the absolute truth. He had full control of his senses and mind. Okay, so that's in general. Now, the verses are going to talk about the qualities of Prahlad. So here we go. Like the super soul, he was kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he was attached like a sympathetic brother. And he considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older God brothers to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was completely free from unnatural pride that might have arisen from his good education, riches, beauty, aristocracy, and so on. So I hope you noted down the verse numbers there. 7th canto, chapter 4, verses 31 and 32. Yes, so, you know, associating with equals is a part of the overall picture of associating with the three categories or classes of devotees. One important point to note is that here we're talking about um, devotees who are senior, equal, or junior to us. In general, we are talking about in specific relationship to us, means those who are actually senior to us, who are actually equal more or less with us, and who may actually be junior to us. In other words, it's relative in terms of our personal situation and the devotees' personal situations. I mean, there can also be the consideration of those who are just senior devotees and so on like that. But this, our little seminar here, was just a part of a bigger seminar which we normally do at some length, like over 2 or 3 full days. So here, though, we're going to be focusing on the relationships between equals, means those who are more or less equal to you as an individual. Yes, right. So, and again, sort of in a broad sense, I'm just going to throw in a couple of things about seniors. In a broad sense, seniors. We will focus on those who are more or less equal to us shortly, but just, and a few ideas in general. So who is senior to you? Who's a senior person? You can note these down if you like, or I can make these notes available to you in due course if you want. So who's senior? Well, Krishna. Krishna's very senior. And Krishna's expansions, Prabhupada, previous acharyas, your guru, if it's someone other than Srila Prabhupada, which, I think in the majority of cases would be a disciple of Prabhupada, then the god brothers and god sisters of your guru, or senior preachers, then sannyasis in general as a category. Srila Prabhupada made the point. Well, Srila Prabhupada actually made the point about your guru, your own guru, that whenever you see your guru, you should offer obeisances. And, I'm sure some of you may know personally Harikesh Das, who used to be very prominent devotee going back quite some years, um, he told me a story just, it was like February or March of 1978, and he himself had just become sort of officially, or however you'd put it, a guru, but he'd had a lot of association with Prabhupada. And you know what he told me? He had an experience with Prabhupada when he was with Prabhupada and they were in South Africa, where I am actually right at this moment. So he was serving Prabhupada, and he was one day he was going in and out, because there were all things were happening which you know made it the circumstances where he just had to go in and out and in and out. And each time he went in and then came out, he offered his obeisances. And this was really like multiple times. It may have been, I didn't ask him how many times, but it sounded like it may have been 30 times or possibly more. Um, and after a little while, Prabhupada stopped him. And Prabhupada said that, some disciples are first class, but you are Dandavat class, which is higher than first class. So anyway, yeah, the guru. And then sannyasis, if you don't do that, Prabhupada did say you should fast. And sannyasis, when the first time you see them in the day, you should offer your obeisances. If you don't, you should fast. Okay, anyway, then the spiritual authorities, like you're all there in, or many of you, I think, in Soho Street. And Dayal Mora Prabhu is the president, so he's a senior. Then there are those who are spiritually more advanced or spiritually realized. That can be a difficult thing to really, get to grips with. Brahmins, cows, they're senior to you. Cows are senior to you, and any Brahmin. Older god brothers, older god sisters, includes those initiated by the same guru as you, or those initiated by a different guru. So these are all seniors. And then in a broad sense, even sort of a sometimes material sense, they're those who are more knowledgeable or experienced than you, even if their bhakti is mixed. Your parents, those who are older than you, guests. Guests are definitely seniors. Then government authorities, and then just older brothers and sisters, meaning biologically. So anyway, when you are a junior and there is a senior around, then anyway, put it this way, don't make the mistake of trying to act like you're senior when you're junior, because that's not a good one. I can tell you a little story, just part of a little story. The whole story would probably take about 5 or 10 minutes, but basically, Prabhupada was in Amsterdam when the deities were being installed. Radha Gopinath are now in Radha Desh. And, like I said, it's a long story, but the devotees had never been involved in installing deities before, so they didn't know what to do. And they were making all sorts of mistakes. And in the end, the president told Prabhupada that we're ready now. for the yajna, for the fire sacrifice. And then Prabhupada looked at the sort of Havan Kund, or, where they're going to do the actual yajna, the fire sacrifice. And there was no decoration, no fruit, no vegetables, nothing like that. And Prabhupada asked the temple president, "Where's the fruit?" And temple president also was not experienced in these things. He thought Prabhupada wanted some fruit. And Prabhupada often, when he had fruit, he would have a fruit salad. So the temple president ran into the kitchen and said, "Where's the fruit? Prabhupada wants the fruit." So they cut up a whole bowl of fruit into a fruit salad, one of the quickest fruit salads in ISKCON history. And he brought it out. "Here's the fruit, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada, there are so many mistakes already, but this was like a bit too much. And Prabhupada didn't say anything. He just looked away. And there was a hippie boy standing right next to the Vyasasan, right next to Prabhupada. He was a bit of a devotee, not too much, but he had some chanting beats. He was chanting. And he saw Prabhupada getting more, you know, kind of angry, or anyway, concerned about all the things that were being done wrong. And then there was the fruit salad. So then the hippie boy, seeing Prabhupada not happy, I mean, transcendentally, I'm sure he was in ecstasy, but I think you understand what I mean. And the boy leant over to Prabhupada and said, "Srila Prabhupada, just chant Hare Krishna." So Prabhupada looked at him like, "Who are you?" And then Prabhupada picked up his beads and started chanting Hare Krishna. So yeah, the hippie boy obviously was extremely junior, but here he is unknowingly and sort of well-intentionedly taking the position of a senior. So these positions matter. They really do matter. And if you're junior and you take a position of senior to someone who is actually senior to you, well, here's a statement from Prabhupada. Listen to this. According to scriptural injunction, one should be very careful of transgressing the law of Maryada Vyatikrama, which means stepping over someone who's senior to you and sort of taking a position of supposed seniority to someone who is actually senior to you. Maryada Vyatikrama. And Prabhupada says, because by so doing, one loses his duration of life, his opulence, fame, and piety, and the blessings of all the world. To be well versed in the transcendental science necessitates awareness of the techniques of spiritual science, which in this case means the different levels of devotees in relation to you. And Prabhupada continues, Uddhava, being well aware of all these technicalities of transcendental service, advised Vidura to approach Maitreya Rishi to receive transcendental knowledge. Yeah, rather than just, Vidura's already having a discussion with Uddhava. And the fact is that Uddhava is more advanced spiritually, but he's younger than Maitreya Rishi. And as I recall, he's younger than Maitreya, although he is more advanced. I mean, he is a very special direct personal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anyway, yeah, I just read that because it's just sort of emphasizing the point that Narada Muni made, but, around the other way. Narada Muni said that if you interact with devotees properly and nicely, in terms of their levels in relation to you, then it will have a greatly beneficial effect on you, on your life. But on the other hand, if you interact improperly, and particularly if you become presumptuous or something like that, take a senior position in front of someone who is senior to you, then it has big negative effect. So, in other words, these things matter. It's not just sort of, the term used was technicality just here, which Prabhupada used, the technicalities of transcendental science. But it's not just sort of technical like ABC, 1, 2, 3. These are very real considerations which have very real implications in our lives. So, okay, now to get a little closer to the subject, one thing, just one consideration, is that in general, devotees who are a little experienced, little knowledgeable like that, devotees, well, humility, of course, is one of the great characteristics of the devotees in general, and particularly those who are, a little experienced and a little knowledgeable. Humility is so extremely important and valuable, and therefore generally devotees relish being juniors, and they're not really, in a sense, that they're definitely not like keen to take a senior position, and they're not even keen, they're not even really inclined to feel that they're equals with some other devotees, nice devotees, but they generally like to place themselves in junior types of positions, in effect, in the sense of serving the devotees, in the sense of getting instruction, inquiring, getting some instruction like that, which, can, anyway, it's just a consideration, something to bear in mind. So, but now, in this little seminar of ours, we are focusing on devotees who are more or less on an equal level to us. So what does that mean? What does it mean? I did mention regarding devotees who are senior that someone is senior to you if they're spiritually more advanced or spiritually more realized than you. But, how are we going to ascertain that? This is a tricky subject. It's a very tricky subject, actually, if we want to get into it, like in the sense, of sort of psychoanalyzing devotees to try and figure out what level they're on and are they more advanced or less advanced, those types of ideas. So what I suggest, my suggestion to all of you, of course, if someone is like just clearly, obviously more knowledgeable and more advanced, then that's one thing. But otherwise, sort of the normal devotees, so to speak, the normal devotees, my suggestion to all of you in terms of understanding, at least, like basically understanding, are they more or less equal to you, plus or minus, give or take? what I advise is that just see how long they've been practicing Krishna consciousness compared to you. And that's, it's in English what we'd call like a rule of thumb. Means it's not just an absolute principle, but it's a guideline, but it's a useful guideline. Someone who's been a devotee as long as you, or maybe perhaps more particularly someone who's been initiated as long as you. To keep things simple, at least for the time being, my recommendation is when considering who's senior to you or junior or equal, to just apply that sort of idea, unless it's just, really obvious, sort of objectively by the position of and capabilities of the devotees in Krishna consciousness. Right. So now there is a really nice verse. There's a really nice verse spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is fourth canto, chapter 30, verse 8. And it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead addressing the Prachetas. I assume you're sort of Srimad Bhagavatam literate, and you know what's happening in which part of Srimad Bhagavatam, or at least you've got some idea. So the Prachetas, they're brothers, and it's again the verse is fourth canto, chapter 30, verse 8, and it goes as as follows: Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo Yuyame Nripanandana Sohardena Pritag Dharmas Tushtoham Soradena Va. And translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear sons of the King, I am very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me." Can you imagine devotees? I mean, anyway, think about if you were in such a situation and the Supreme Personality of Godhead expressed feelings like this. Sure, this is just amazing. And the Lord just volunteers himself that now you may ask a benediction of me. And then to sort of emphasize the point a bit further, the very next verse, fourth canto, chapter 30, verse 9, I'll just read the translation. The Lord continued, "Those who remember you every evening of every day will become friendly with their brothers," and I would say, and sisters, "and with all other living entities." How's that? And that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that their friendship is, and like working together and cooperating together and not being, like prejudiced at all, but just really open with each other like that, is so, he appreciates it so much that if we remember the Prachetas and the example, I mean, you can read about the Prachetas there and various things they did. It's an interesting story. Yeah, but if we remember them regularly, then we will be able to develop friendly relationships with other devotees and even with all other living entities. Because, Srinivasa Acharya in the Shad Goswami Astakam, one of the many points he makes about the six Goswamis is that they were dear to everyone. Everyone liked them. Everyone loved them, actually. Dira means like the devotees or the pious people, and adira, those who are not pious and may have actually been like bad people. So, but the Goswamis were appreciated greatly. Dira adira priya karo, priya karo, priya. This term priya, it means dear, very dear. Like, Krishna Priya, Radha Priya. Some devotees have names like this. And it means, there's a close relationship. And not just like, yeah, whoever it is thinks you're sort of a good guy or whatever. But it's a close relationship, a very dear relationship. Okay, now I have here devotees. Well, okay, let me just go back to the sort of foundational, fundamental level of the understandings of devotees who are on the three levels in relation with us. When someone is senior to you, then they're two specific and even mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, very specific ways you should interact with them. One is you should render service as a humble servant. Render service, and the other is make inquiries. I mean, this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. Pariprashnena sevaya. Prashna, if you're from a Hindi-speaking background, you would know prashna means question, and in Sanskrit. Also, pariprashnena, ena, the ending ena means by doing something, yeah, or with or through doing something. So pariprashnena, by asking questions, and sevaya, by rendering service. Now, when it comes to devotees, let's say, who are junior to us, what Narada Muni said, do you remember what he said? Be compassionate. Being compassionate means in a mood of concern and interest and of mercy, actually. Try to help this junior person become nicely situated in Krishna consciousness, basically. And, with it being clear that the junior is being cared for. Yeah, so in a certain sense, the mood in regard to juniors, if you're a senior to someone, it's kind of like, if we want to express it in these terms, kind of like a parental attitude. Because, I'm sure you all know what parents are. Some of you may be parents. Yeah, you've got to protect, you've got to nourish, you've got to guide, educate. Yeah, these are all, and protect, these are parental activities with the children. But now equals, the basic point that Narada Muni made is, and it's the main point generally as the subject is explained, is to befriend them, to befriend the devotees who are, more or less plus or minus on an equal level to you, and cooperate, and cooperate. Yeah, not trying to assert yourself. I mean, if it's clear that you're more or less on an equal level, you definitely. So, so this is the idea, and to share as friends. Um, so now here, I have a list here, and if you can write fast enough, you can write down some of these qualities. It's a list of qualities which are helpful in the different types of relationships, but here we're focusing more on relationships with equals. A mood of, well, understanding, a mood of understanding your devotee friend, because everyone's an individual, everyone has their personal qualities, and you know everyone's a bit different from everybody else. So we have to be understanding, and we have to be tolerant. We have to be tolerant with our friends because they're specific individuals. Some friend may be louder than us. Some friend may be quieter than us. We have to be able to tolerate and not, uh, get disturbed by these things. So patience is there. Honesty. Honesty is a very important quality with those who are equal to you, like friends. To be responsive, to be trustworthy. Responsive in the sense of get into things. When you're serving together, get into things. Trustworthy, responsible, and able to listen. That's a very important part of dealing with devotees or people on a friendly level, to be able to listen to them and not, there's a saying, please, please don't speak while I'm interrupting. But to not have that sort of attitude. Yeah, there's a saying, actually, it comes from Stephen Covey, of all people, who's like a management guru type. Seek to understand before trying to be understood. Then you should have a mood of respect, a mood of empathy, because you're more or less on the same level. So to appreciate in those terms. A mood of flexibility, a sense of humor sometimes, because sometimes your friends do something a little funny, or you need a sense of humor. And to not be a source of anxiety. Of course, these also apply in terms of other relationships. But they're quite prominent when it comes to associating with equals. Now, I have a question, and my question is, are there any questions?
So Maharaj, we've actually asked devotees to write their questions on the chat. So
Okay, okay.
and devotees can now write their questions on the chat so Maharaj can select which ones he would like to answer.
Okay, yeah. Let me now, because we only got 10 minutes, because I have another call coming up um, around what would be, I think, 10 o'clock your time, 11 o'clock my time. So here is a question from Ramanath Prabhu. How can a devotee know when they're dealing with devotees who are on an equal platform? Well, in very simple terms, I tried to address that. I think maybe, yeah, you asked that question before I sort of addressed the point. But keeping it simple, um, you can at least get a decent enough idea, usually, by how long they've been devotees when they're initiated, those types of ideas. But then I did mention about seniority. If you remember, the one point about seniority was that someone may have let me just go back to, here it is, the spiritual authorities in ISKCON. This is another way in which a devotee, may have seniority to you, although in other terms, he or she may be equal or might even be junior. And, when someone is junior, but they're given like serious managerial responsibility, like, becoming a GBC member or even just a temple president, then even if you are, years older and you've been a devotee for years longer, you need to accept this person as your authority and, act in suitable ways. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean they're equal on a spiritual platform, but we should do that. And hopefully you know, it's an interesting experience for someone who is junior to have to be an authority managerially for someone else who is clearly senior. And, somehow or other, don't ask me how it happened, but I've been usually in a position of seniority most of the time. I mean, at least 75% since I was like, say, 3 or 4 months living in the temple in London. Yeah, I became the temple commander and I had to engage devotees who are definitely senior. So then the junior has to be, you know, very humble and respectful and nice, but still carry out the position, I mean, the responsibilities of authority. And hopefully, and my experience was, frankly, that those devotees, as long as I was doing it nicely, they didn't mind me asking them to do things. The only one who did once was, I mean, you're there in London, you probably remember Bhajahari Prabhu. So Bhajahari Prabhu, anyway, somehow something went a little wrong between us. And at the time I was Raghubeer Das, and he said to me, Raghubeer, you're so heavy, which, I don't think I really was, but yeah, okay. So then next one here, let's see, from the LCVS team. Oh, I see, this is just general managerial points for the program. How can, so this is now from Lokanath and Prema, Hare Krishna, Lokanath and Prema. How can we relate being pleased to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 434 about serving and inquiring from the guru or senior person? How can we relate being pleased? Well, I mean, I would say in senior terms, it just means that, oh, look, here is my guru, or here is, a senior devotee um, who's there with me. And we should take it that, oh, my good fortune, because I can render some service. I can render some service. How wonderful. And perhaps I can also inquire about something, because, to be able to inquire and get good answers to your inquiries, that is, that's great, highly beneficial. Okay, let's see. Here is Bhakta Mario from Soho. What is the difference in relationship with like-minded devotees, her equal, and not like-minded equals? Well, sure, everyone's an individual. And sometimes the differences in some cases may really be very quite considerable. So, in general, we should try to be friendly to our equals and cooperative. Prabhupada did say, we all know, that your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate together after I'm gone. But, without maintaining respect and a friendly attitude with someone who really has a different nature to you, and you just find it difficult spending a lot of time with them, then just remain very friendly in attitude, and whenever you deal, be friendly and nice. But you may have to not sort of be with the person all the time. But generally, as much as possible, we should try and tolerate devotees. You could say devotees' eccentricities, because we're all a bit eccentric in our particular ways. There's one incident with Srila Prabhupada, maybe you heard of it. One devotee complained to Prabhupada about another devotee. This devotee, he's like this, he's like that, and, he's too much Srila Prabhupada, and I just can't work with him. And Prabhupada said basically along the lines that, well, he's a devotee, so try to tolerate him. Because apparently they were meant to work together, serve together. But then the devotee basically repeated, but Srila Prabhupada, he does this, he does that, and it's just very difficult to deal with him. So I don't think I can. And Prabhupada gave, one of his Prabhupada answers. Srila Prabhupada said that he's a devotee, and you should try to tolerate him as I tolerate you. So, it's an interesting little point that despite everything, even our best efforts, there's always going to be at least one person who's tolerating us. And we may think that we're pretty cool, but yeah, it tends to be like that. So in general, we should try to work with equals if we're, if we're meant to work with them in particular service, even if they are quite different from us. And it can be really interesting seeing how devotees have different perspectives on things and different attitudes can be really quite eye-opening and help you appreciate them for their being devotees. But otherwise, if it just gets too much, then you may have to sort of offer your friendship from a distance some of the time. So next one from Radha Prema, Devi Dasi, we listed the qualities, well, some of the qualities that are necessary or helpful in a friendly relationship. What needs to be done to make such a relationship spiritual, first of all? Well, okay. Seems like at a certain point it's not enough to be just a good friend, even it would be great to be at least a good, reliable person. There's a need of spiritual relationship in friendship. Yeah, well, I was hoping that would be taken as being understood, like humility in Krishna consciousness is very helpful. Empathy to understand someone who's close to you. Uh, but here's something. Now, I have to finish actually. So I want to leave all of you. I mean, there's only, what, 20 something of you. It's not many. I want to leave a little homework with you. And it's related to what Radha Prema Devi Dasi just asked. If you can, if you've got access to the chat, if you can see it, I assume you should be able to make a relationship, a friendly relationship, a spiritual friendly, Krishna conscious friendly relationship, rather than just a friendly relationship. I have some homework for you, and here it goes. Please note this. I would like you, just for yourself, you don't have to, I mean, you can report back to me next week if you want, but you don't have to. It's really just for you. If you want to get into this and, really sort of explore these things, maybe, maybe today sometime, or maybe tomorrow, because I assume some of you don't live in a temple, but on Sunday, you will probably go to the nearest temple. So let's say tomorrow or whenever the situation arises, that, after the program, prasadam is served, and we all go and we sit down with someone or ones, and there's a bit of chit chat goes on, and just depends, on who's who and how well you know them, what you may talk about. But I would like you, and I think it would really help you, to sit down with someone who you consider, more or less an equal, if you can, if it's possible, and start a Krishna conscious conversation. Now, I mean, you can always start with how are you doing and, that sort of thing, how's the family or whatever. That's the small talk. But I would like you to really start a Krishna conscious discussion over prasadam with the friend or equal, sorry. Oh my God, excuse me. Yeah, sorry about that. Should have turned my phone off. Yeah, with a friend, but a Krishna conscious discussion, like, to start it off, I was just yesterday or one of the days, I was reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or I was listening to a class of Srila Prabhupada's, and there, it was said that such and such and such and such. And so I've been thinking about this, and, some ideas came to me. What do you think? And in this way, start an actual Krishna conscious discussion. Yeah. Not rather than just about the weather and your family and your health and all of that, and just sort of incidental stuff, but some actual focused Krishna conscious discussion. And then, in due course, try and make a regular practice of this. Yeah. Because, I feel, I'm sure it will really help you actually. And it will really help you to, in your friendly relationships. And the last one, because I just have to go, they're trying to call me here from another part of the world. May I know how do we deal with juniors who are trying to act as seniors and sometimes seem a little disrespectful sometimes, but at the same time be aware that it could be our own false ego acting. Sure. Okay, well, the last little bit complicates matters. But, one simple approach could be, if you get a chance, if you see, particularly if you see the junior dealing with not you, maybe, but with someone else who's senior to them in, unsuitable ways, take the junior aside and just say, you listen, Prabhu. No, I know you're a sincere soul. You're trying your best, but I mean, some sort of preface it a little, that you should try to do like this, do like that. Yeah. And, that's a way possibly of trying to start some process of helping the junior to sort of come down to earth a bit. Anyway, devotees, Hare Krishna, I do have to go. I'm sorry, and I'm sure you've got all sorts of things you need to do. So we will be online next week on Saturday. I will be, would you believe, I will be in Mozambique for Rath Yatra. And it is the fifth poorest country in the world. But they tell me I'll have internet. So I'll see you there. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
If we could all just say three loud Haribos for the Maharaj before we go, maybe we can all unmute ourselves. Give everyone a few seconds to do so. Also, Haribo, Haribo, Haribo.
Haribo, Haribo, Haribo.
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 Thank you, Swami Maharaj Ki.
Hare Krishna
Jai.
Maharaj.
And
Jai.
Haribol to all
Hare
of
Krishna
you.
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.